Bees Army on Twitter asks, will the club be running tours of the new stadium?
Oh, first and foremost, we didn't want to do tours because we were desperately keen to get fans back into the stadium, and we had plans in place for the safe return of fans from the 1st of October. We'd been working really closely with our local safety advisory group to make that happen, but suddenly the government took the decision alongside the Rule of Six announcement that they were going to halt the return of fans into stadiums, and they also cancelled the pilot events. You know, we were incredibly disappointed by that. We believed it was a football-wide view that we could work very closely and with our local safety advisory groups to make sure that we could get fans back into the stadiums, and we had all those plans in place to make that happen effectively from the Preston games. But we will continue to work on lobbying the government, working with the EFL, working with our local MPs who have been incredibly helpful in asking questions in the House of Commons about why fans can't return to the stadium. But whilst that's all taking place, we are working on a plan to implement tours, and hopefully we will have those up and running for season ticket holders by the end of October.
Is there any update on the implementation of safe standing?
I think with everything else that's going on at government level at the moment, there isn't a real update on that. Only to say that we continue to support the advancement of safe standing, and we'll work closely with local government and safety advisory groups to make that happen. Clearly, there is a significant commercial implication in bringing in safe standing in order to convert both the West Stand and the away supporter area into safe standing. That's going to cost the club a lot of money at a time where budgets are incredibly tight. But you know, being realistic, I can't see safe standing coming into force for the foreseeable future.
Has the club made arrangements with companies on Great West Road for matchday parking?
Yeah, we've reached out to lots of local businesses and local schools with regard to car parking facilities. We're at advanced stages of our discussions with those relevant parties. We're very confident that we have a robust car parking schedule in place for the return of fans to our stadiums. Obviously, that's a welcome boost to some of the local businesses and the schools from a financial perspective, but it's very much as soon as we're ready to make some announcements, we will do, but we have a pretty robust plan in place.
When will the internal fit out of the stadium be completed, including the tunnel entrance?
Well, first and foremost, we know that we have a magnificent new home, but it does need those finishing touches to make it look like our home. Clearly there's branding on the externals of the stadium, but inside the main bowl we're looking at all of the concrete fascias around the stadium, which will hopefully be branded in time for the Coventry City game. You also need to remember that the stadium is incredibly technology advanced. We have over 350 screens in the venue, and they're all designed to switch over so that we can play Bees content throughout our match day. So it may not look at the moment like it's our home, but genuinely when you get in there, you see the screens on, you'll see a lot more Brentford branding than you currently do.
Noble Norgard and Wandering Bee ask, with the return of supporters delayed further, is it possible for flags to be placed on the seats at the new stadium?
Yeah, we're looking at that now. We hope to put that in place for the Coventry City game, and we're looking at installing the Bees flags in the top of the West Stand, our home end.
The club recently contacted season ticket holders about their options for the 2021 season. What do you make of their response?
We've been absolutely delighted with the response. First and foremost, I want to pay a tribute and thanks really to Bias and Bees United, who played a very active role in helping us formulate the three options. We believe we've been very fair with the fans, and this has been reflected in the fact that 90% of our season ticket holders have taken option one, which is to freeze their season ticket for the 2021 season. Just to put it in context, we had over £3.5 million worth of season ticket revenue at risk through this process. Clearly, we're not out of the woods, and the reality is if we don't play games in front of crowds for the remainder of this season, then we will have a significant hole in our budget for the 21-22 season of that £3.5 million. So that's why we're really focused on how we can get fans back into the stadium, albeit a reduced capacity to start off with, but that does breathe some life back into what we call the P&L of the organisation, and that's absolutely vital.
This one's from Andy Cousins. He asks, if any of the premium seat ticket holders request a full refund, will those seats be made available to supporters?
I think what Andy's referring to there are probably the dugout seats. They weren't sold on multi-year licences, they were sold on a seasonal basis. We're still getting the data back in terms of people's options on freeze or refund. I think the initial indication that there are only a very small number of people in the dugout area that ask for full refunds. Those refunded tickets will go back onto a dugout waiting list. So I suggest to Andy that he contacts the club and gets his name onto the dugout waiting list.
Stuart Smith asks, if the government allows the return of supporters in a reduced capacity scenario, do we have the safety certificate secured that will allow us to be part of that scheme?
Yeah, we have a full safety certificate with what we call a COVID side letter. So as long as we're working within the government guidelines of return to safe crowds, we're absolutely fine. So again, this was all put into place when we believed that we were getting fans back into the stadium from the 1st of October. So we're absolutely confident that we can accommodate fans as and when guidelines permit.
Will supporters with the most tap points be given priority to the first match at the new stadium if only a limited number of fans can attend?
No, tap points won't play a part in reduced capacity games. All supporters that took the option to freeze will go on a rotational basis, dependent on obviously the capacity that we can achieve. I'd also like to point out that we will really work hard to make sure that families stay together and that we can put groups into social bubbles, and that will help us increase the number of people that we can bring into the stadium.
What can the club do to iron out the faults with iFollow's streaming service? Is there a different platform that can be used?
No, we're part of the EFL-wide iFollow initiative. We have an option to come out of that, but currently that's just not a realistic option for us because of the additional costs that would be involved in creating our own platform. But I would say to everyone, we are in constant dialogue with the EFL. We need to understand all of the challenges. We are working hard with them and their third party to deliver, and we will continue to harangue and harass the EFL to make sure that this is as pain-free as it possibly can be for our fans. We know how important it is that they have access to the bees. To try and make life easier, we really would urge all of our fans to redeem their iFollow codes as soon as possible so that they can test the iFollow systems ahead of each match day. We are also making further developments to our app to improve the video platform on the app. You'll hear about that in a little bit more detail in due course, but through this period it's clear that our digital platforms and our content have become increasingly important because fans can't get what they want, which is attending matches. Therefore, it's really important for us to service our supporters with market-leading content, and you can only create market-leading content if you have the right platforms to put them on. So we're very conscious that this is work in progress, will need continual investment, but it's definitely an area of the business that we're gearing up for.
Joe Hales asks, should fans not be allowed to return to stadia past the 31st of December, will iFollow codes continue to be issued to season ticket holders who have frozen their seats?
I think the use of iFollow's under constant review. In the first phase, we took a decision to include it within the freeze option up until the end of this year. We'll wait and see how the return of crowds is developing, and then we'll make some further announcements on iFollow in due course.
Is the club any closer to securing a naming rights partner for the new stadium?
I think it's fair to say the one thing that this football club is pragmatic and realistic. The market conditions are incredibly tough at the moment, and we won't compromise on our naming rights deal. It's not a case of doing a deal for the sake of doing a deal. We want to do the right deal that has long-term benefit and value to the football club. We have received 2 offers for our naming rights, and we've declined them both because we don't think that they're at the level that they need to be. We are still in discussions with some interested parties, and they will continue to develop over the coming months. But as I said earlier, we want to do the right deal, not just any deal. And we're confident that the naming rights opportunity does afford companies a fantastic brand building and engagement opportunity. So we won't compromise. In terms of other successes, both commercially, from a stadium perspective, we're delighted to announce that we've done our deal with Asahi and the Fuller's London Pride brand to become the official beer of the new stadium. So that pouring rights deal comes into immediate effect. We've also announced UWL as one of our founding partners, a company and an organisation that has got a long history with supporting Brentford Football Club and is very much part of our local community. So we're delighted to see them on board. And we've also announced the Utilita front of shirt deal, which again, in the market conditions, was a fantastic deal for the football club. A brand, again, with a strong football heritage and a brand that we can deliver some real strong activation platforms and opportunities with.
What are the club's retail plans following the move from Griffin Park? Will a physical club shop continue to operate?
Before I talk about the club shop, I think retail has definitely been one of our success stories through the lockdown period. I think we've had our record retail takings. I think that's on the back of some great kit designs from Umbro last season and some great kit designs for this season. We've just recently hired a new retail manager with 8 years experience for Arsenal Football Club. He arrived on Monday of this week, so it's time for him to get his feet under the table and really assess what we're currently doing from a retail perspective. But we are working closely with him to develop what our retail presence will be at the new stadium. Clearly, as well as the online piece, we do need to deliver and develop some physical retail outlets at the venue and the surrounding areas. So, it's definitely an area of significant focus and something that we want to move forward quickly. Whilst we're developing our strategies around retail, we will keep hold of the club shop on Braemar Road, and we are developing plans to open that shop up to visitors, particularly leading into the busy Christmas period.
Andy Sansom asks, does the club's diversity and inclusion policy, Be Together, apply to all staff members?
100% it does. We are aiming to be the most inclusive club in the country, which applies both to our match day experience, but all the working practices throughout the football club. We're continually looking to strive to improve in those areas. We are currently recruiting for a new head of diversity and inclusion and equality. That is well underway now, and we've already got a short list of candidates that have been presented to us. So absolutely it is an area of key focus, not just through the business operation, but something that the board have taken a particular keen interest in. Many fans will be aware that there was a really distasteful recent incident, and the club worked very quickly with Kick It Out and other bodies to ensure that we took some immediate and robust action against that particular case. Clearly, going through that process has highlighted the need for us to have good policies and process in place, and we are developing that, and obviously that's something that we want our new head of EDI to really focus on going forward.
One from Lewis Adriano, who asks, will Brentford Women's FC soon be playing in the same kit as the men's side?
They will indeed. Yep, the Utilita kit and the Umbro kit will be with the women's team, so they'll be wearing that for the current season. Also, I'd like to pay tribute to Roger and Amy and Carly Osborne for their tremendous work with the women's team. At the back end of, or pre-lockdown of COVID, we met with the women's team and have put in place a plan to bring them much closer to the football club. Amy's actually now left the trust and is a full-time employee at Brentford Football Club, and will be working alongside the rest of our community team to ensure that the women's team is more integrated into the overall organisation. Utilita have first and foremost made their commitment to the women's team. That relationship has developed, and obviously now they're the lead partner of the men's teams. So you know, it's incredibly important that we work hand in glove with the women's team, and that's why we've implemented a strategy of bringing them much closer to the overall organisation, so that they aren't a separate entity, they're very much part of the family.
What key attributes do you look for in employees on the business side at Brentford?
Like any organisation, either on the pitch or off the pitch, you're only as good as your people, and our club values are really important to us. We've talked a lot about togetherness as the principle of our club values, but we also have honesty, respect, humility, trust and professionalism. And they're all values that have really come through over this difficult period. Whilst we've had members of staff on furlough, their professionalism after coming off furlough back into the business has been second to none. And again, I'd just like to take this opportunity to pay tribute really to all of the members of staff for the way that they've gone about their activities over this really challenging period.
Penultimate question is from Phil Carter, who asks, on and off the field, do you think the club is stronger now than it was this time last year?
Difficult question. It really depends what you mean by stronger. You know, look, let's make no bones about it. Financially, it's been challenging, and it will continue to be challenging until we breathe some life back into our match day income. But are we stronger from a perspective of the organisation, the teams that we have in place at the business? I think 100% we are. You know, we've recently talked about as a leadership team how important it is that even at this period now where it's difficult to drive revenue, that we put ourselves in a place where when the sun starts to shine again, that we are ready to kick on as an organisation. Because there is no question that through the initial phase of COVID, when we went into complete lockdown, we effectively had to wrap the business up in cotton wool, and it stood still at best. That can't happen going forward. You know, we have to get all of the core platforms in place to make sure that we're ready to go as and when we can.
From a financial point of view, how are Brentford coping in the current circumstances?
Yeah, we're doing okay. I think there are probably a lot of other clubs in a more precarious and difficult position than us. I think that the truth is we're just incredibly frustrated. We had in place more season ticket holders than we'd ever had. We had in place more premium seat holders than we've ever had. So the future was looking really bright for this season from a commercial perspective. But you know, we are where we are. We have to deal with what's in front of us. I talked earlier about how realistic and pragmatic we are as an organisation, and that comes from the top. I think everybody you know, understands the difficulty that we face and is in front of us, and that's why it's really important that, you know, during this period now, that we don't stand still, that we get ourselves ready for when that sun starts to shine again, that we can start to put our foot on the accelerator and really grow the organisation.